So we do something called Kitchen Bath Market Outlook, KBMO, to really look at the overall health of the K&B industry. So you build a report that gives insight into market growth for K&B, consumer spending, the trends, and then key kitchen and bath features.
Obviously, a lot of information and data points that can be pulled out of that. So how do you boil it down to sort of identify where the industry is right now?
The health of the K&B segment is, I would say, very robust, and that's probably putting it even mildly. We don't see that growth slowing down in 2021. Demand just continues to grow.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. We're coming off of primetime not too long ago here, and not too long before that, Nationwide Marketing Group had a small contingent who took part in the NKBA's KBIZ show, and NKBA being the National Kitchen and Bath Association, and a group that covers all the design trends and economic trends happening in the K&B space. And always great to connect with the vendors that are there, our vendors, another opportunity to meet with them, even if it was in a virtual setting, but also to hear from NKBA on everything that they're reporting, for the industry from a trend standpoint, from an economic standpoint, and gave us the idea, the thought to catch up with them outside of the show, when things are a little less crazy and we can kind of focus in on some of the things that they're doing and what it means to our retailers, our members, and the space in general. So we did that recently. That voice you heard at the top there was Pamela McNally, the VP of Marketplace for NKBA, and we had an awesome conversation recently with Pam about everything that they do, from their market report that they release, that NKBA releases regularly, and also about their design trends, and so what they're seeing, from a business standpoint, from the health of the industry. We talked about that a lot, and then also from the design standpoint, a lot of great conversations and discussions around how this pandemic has impacted design trends in the kitchen and bath, and also outside of the home as well. So just a lot of great insights from Pam throughout the interview, and that I've been looking forward to sharing for quite some time. So let's just go ahead and dive into our Independent Thinking Podcast with Pam McNally of the National Kitchen and Bath Association. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and I'm really excited. Today is a podcast we've had on the calendar for a couple of weeks now, and I'm excited to finally dive in with you, Miss Pam McNally of the NKBA, VP of Marketplace for NKBA, the National Kitchen and Bath Association. And I know you guys are not too far removed from your own show. We just had our prime time, as we're sitting here recording last week. Are you recovered yet from KBIZ and everything you guys went through?
We're definitely recovered and looking forward to 222 in person. Let me tell you, virtual, as you well know, didn't work out too well. But
every show has their challenges, but no,
it was a big one though.
We're still a week out, and we're still. I'm trying to figure out when I'll be fully recovered from even virtual shows. I look forward to getting back in person. These virtual shows, I swear, they take more out of you than being in person.
It was definitely a challenge for the team. We've never done this. I think a lot of people never have really taken on a virtual event. So yes, it was a bit of a challenge, but I have to say we did have that major hiccup, but we recovered, and a lot of the content ended up being on our site. And kind of, to be honest, people went there, and the whole thing kind of went smoothly after that. So
we attended, we attended, and you still get those conversations. It's not the same, any virtual show. Same with our primetime. It's hard to have those conversations in a chat or even like this in a virtual, video setting. But it cannot wait to get back in person and just make those connections. And it is what it is.
You and me both, let me tell you.
So before we dive into, we got a lot of great content to dive into today. But before that, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of your role at NKBA.
You're going to regret this. All right. But I joined NKBA about 8 months ago from Interior Design, which is owned by Sandow. And at Interior Design, I headed up strategy, digital initiatives, and kind of new programs. So my background is mostly digital. I started out at print, but quickly switched digital because if anybody who knows me knows I like things that move fast and be flexible. So I've known the NKBA for years. They were one of my biggest clients. And I've long admired Bill and Susie for what they've done at the NKBA. So right before the pandemic, we decided maybe it'd be a good idea for me to join them because they really wanted to push some of their digital. They wanted to expand into digital. So about 3 months later, at the peak of the pandemic, I joined. I haven't met most of the people at all in person.
Crazy.
And I head up marketing and digital initiatives. And, I work closely with sales on creating those big partner programs, which again, are another area we want to expand. Great group of people, really love what I do and who I work with. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I think of my background, just being able to cover this organization, a lot of great work, a lot of great, obviously the events is a big part of it, but the research I think is really where it gets interesting. And I know you guys have the marketplace reports and design trend reports, a lot of different, initiatives coming out of NKBA that sort of set the stage for the quarters to come, the years to come, and what designers and retailers as well, that have maybe some design offerings in their portfolio to kind of keep an eye on. So I know we're going to single in on two today with the market research and the design reports. Talk about the market research or the market report and sort of what that, a little bit about it, how it's conducted, and sort of the significance of it for NKBA.
So, it's so funny because when I first started, I've never been in an organization where there's so many acronyms, accreditations, and then you have all these research reports. And I'm like, what? KBMI, KBMO, what the heck? And I'm like, oh gosh, but the team was really patient. So I think I've got about 50% of it down right now. So you're gonna have to forgive me if I kind of fumble a tad. That's why I'm hoping nobody's listening from the NKBA. But I'll let you in a secret. My favorite part of the whole thing is research because it's an amazing team and they're so thorough. I'm really in awe what they do. And I have to say that awe is spread throughout the K&B industry because these reports that we do are regular reports that we do for the K&B industry, and execs look for them to see what's coming ahead. So we do something called Kitchen Bath Market Outlook, KBMO, which we do in partnership with John Burns Real Estate Consulting to really look at the overall health of the K&B industry. We do about, I'd say 2 or 3 of those updates. I think it's beginning of the year, June and September. We look at these very secondary research areas like the U.S. Census, National Association of Retailers, housing starts, and then we combine it with our own proprietary research, right, which is about nearly 5,000 consumers. So you build a report that gives insight into market growth for K&B, consumer spending, the trends, and then key kitchen and bath features that, again, that these, the K&B execs kind of look forward to see what's happening.
Gotcha. So what, obviously a lot of information and data points that can be pulled out of that. Is there a way to sort of tell, what is the overall health right now? We're coming off of a crazy year. Right. So how do you boil it down to sort of, identify where the industry is right now?
So, what's interesting, the health of the K&B segment is, I would say, very robust, and that's probably putting it even mildly, right? We don't see that growth slowing down in 2021. Demand just continues to grow. I think you hear about it, you see it. Housing and home improvements are leading us out of the recession. I mean, I hate to call it a recession because I personally think it was a depression. I can't imagine like such a drop that it hasn't happened in decades, right? So if you look at it, total residential K&B spend is projected to grow nearly 17% this year, okay, to about 160 billion from 136 billion in 2020. I'd say that's a pretty healthy, growth, considering if you look at hospitality, leisure, and some other segments of the economy that are just struggling to stay afloat. So I feel like, last year, definitely DIY was driving most of that because people didn't want anybody in their homes. I think as we move out of the pandemic and vaccinations, you're seeing larger remodels, people allowing people in to their homes. And the 2 areas that they're really looking at are kitchen and bath.
Yeah. And I'll speak from personal experience. We have a local designer looking, I know a lot of it at our kitchen to do a kitchen redesign. So it's a testament to, I'm a case study right now. So
there you go.
For this space.
We're going to have to send our photographer over to you then.
So I know a lot of it, that growth has to do in attending NKBA and attending KBiz and listening to Bill talk. There's a massive opportunity. It seemed like I know there's between low interest rates, and then I know consumers, the statistic was crazy as to how much, the average home equity is right now. I mean, is that sort of stuff? And then you mentioned people sitting at home. Is that really what's driving this boom right now?
Yeah, so if you look at so there are a couple things happening, right? We have kitchen and bath new construction, which is driving a lot of that spend, which is about 22%. That's driving about 22% of the increase in the spending. And then we've got the remodels, which is accounting for about 10%, right?
Right.
So most of that growth is really in the high end, mid to high end projects, because most of the, the low end were DIY, right? DIY that was being done in 220. And there's this pent up demand for this mid to high end to have people come in and really renovate their homes. It really is being funded by home sales, right? Or refinance. The rates are so low, there's never been a better time to sell or to refi. We're seeing those rates creep up, but research predicts that we're going to continue demand for housing and then also shrinking supply. So the good news is that, like I said, people are turning to larger remodels, and the shift to larger size projects is a reversal from what happened last year. Our members are increasingly finding consumers are coming back to these full scale remodels to accommodate, I think we all know what's happening, the changing needs of home life, right? And I also think the staycations, I'm sure you've heard, for the last year, everybody's been home, right?
Yeah.
So help redirect these funds to home improvements. And it's not just indoor, it's also outdoor. Think outdoor kitchen, showers. I think what you're seeing is a 50% increase in projects for residential outdoor living areas. About 60% are updating what they have, and 40% are looking to add new. And a lot of this is being driven by outdoor kitchens. If you look at me, for example, I was never home. I was traveling 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. I haven't been on a trip in nearly a year, and been spending time in spaces in my home, inside and out, that I've never really noticed before. I have to be honest.
Right,
I was like, okay,
right.
I'm home. I'm going to put my bag away, see my kids, my dogs, and I'm out again. But now I notice, and I understand completely, like you, why, you've got to, people want to redo things. It's not right. If I'm going to spend 24/7 in my home, I need to redo things.
Right. You want to enjoy being there. It's just kind of what it boils down to.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned that the it's kind of trending towards those larger scale projects right now. And I know that, we had talked previously about kind of the supply and demand issue that's facing this industry. I know, on the retail side, we're seeing just the products, especially in appliances, the back orders and things like that. Materials, I know, as well, is a big issue. So as we see more larger projects, is that having what kind of impact is that having on those projects with the supply chain?
So here's the thing. The pipelines are full and everyone is extremely busy, right? And I got to say, there's 2 big challenges that are facing designers, specifiers, remodelers. And one is supply chain lag and disruption, and also finding, workers. Skilled labor is really difficult these days to find. It's shocking considering that we look at the unemployment rate and so many people out of a job, but we're talking skilled labor. So the rising prices of raw materials, you see what's going on with lumber. And that impacts everything. You think about it, what our research shows is that cabinets anchor a remodel of a kitchen, right? People look at their cabinets, it's the biggest thing they can see outside of appliances, and say, I want to remodel. So that's the first thing they do. And then that kind of everything cascades after that. So now you're looking at cabinet supply. getting a cabinet into your remodel used to take weeks. Now it takes months, and that's probably being generous. I was listening to our NKBA live segment the other day, B&B, which Bill hosts, Bill Darcy, our CEO, and one of the designers was saying that they had ordered appliances in July, and they still don't have them and don't expect it until March, at the end of March, and that's this year. So that's kind of crazy. So I think what's happening is that, it's good and bad. Bad because designers are frustrated. They can't get what they need. And I think the advice that I'm hearing from them is that you've got to be honest and upfront. You've got to be honest and upfront with your customers and let them know, and actually probably overestimate the time for not only getting products, but also the cost, because it's a continuous cycle. And I have to say, with the world where everyone expects everything in a day, thanks to Amazon, thank you, Amazon.
Yeah, right.
So there's a little bit of frustration, but I think what I'm hearing from designers is that, yes, there's frustration, but I think people are much more accepting because the world has slowed down.
Right. They kind of get that, we're still coming out of a pandemic, and this is sort of, you can order your groceries and small items like that online, but these are bigger projects. The industries have slowed down. The world has kind of slowed down. So it's to be expected.
Think about it. No one's going anywhere. Sure, you're frustrated, but at the end of the day, I think everyone's slowed down. been a little more patient. And I think that it's kind of something that our designers and our remodelers are seeing. So yes, there's frustration, but I think if we were in a situation like this 2 years ago and there was supply chain lag, I think it would have been a very different situation in terms of the customer, because I would have been home. I only have one day I'm home. I got to have my stuff here at that day. And if I don't, you know what, my window closes. So I think you're seeing a lot of patience on the part of the consumer that's helping.
Certainly. And what's the expectation as far as, because you mentioned those lumber issues and crazy, obviously it affects the design side and building cabinets, but also we're seeing it on the furniture side as well. You need that same lumber to build couches and tables and things like that. So, I mean, we've heard sort of what we expect on the furniture side. What do you guys, what's the expectation as to when it sort of gets back to any sort of normalcy with what we typically expect with the supply chain?
Yeah, I don't think I can really answer that. We don't really have any research that indicates that, although, there's got to be an end in sight, right? I mean, I think we all kind of assume, I think that if you look at what experts are saying, that the return to well, I hate to say normalcy because it's never going to be normal. People are looking at 2-3 years, right? They're looking at 2-3 years for, the jobs to recover. For industry to recover in certain areas, and maybe even 5 years. So will supply chain be 3-5 years out? Probably not. But I mean, in my point of view, only my personal point of view, I think you're going to see this continue through 2021 and start to see it ease up maybe at the end of 2021 because of the demand, right?
Gotcha.
And there's only so much demand, limited supply, and look what's going on in Europe, because Europe is going backwards and closing down. And, so you gotta, I mean, again, so that's, again, no real projection, but just me, thinking, okay, maybe I know.
For those that maybe you can answer this, the designers and builders out there that, or for our retailers, our audience, they hear about these supply chain issues. What is the kind of the root causes? Like, why is obviously demand is a big part of it. When there is more demand, supply is going to go down. But what are sort of those challenges that they're having sort of keeping up with it? Are there other external factors that they're facing?
I mean, think about it, because for how long were we closed down? You couldn't even manufacture. I mean, even personally, some of the items that we all expect to go and get at a store, we couldn't get. I mean, think of paper products, because a lot of those factories, whether here in the States or overseas, were closed down, right? So then nothing was being manufactured. So then there's obviously a backlog. And then there's this spike in demand. And then before you know it, you've got, trying to keep up. And then look at what's going on in Europe right now. You're seeing factories close down again. Here we haven't seen that so much. We've kind of come back and up and running, but you never know. So I feel like it's been kind of this push-pull situation that I don't know if we're going to get out of until there's either herd immunity or everyone's vaccinated and back to work.
Right. I want to switch gears a little bit. We talked about all the trends and where we sort of see things going, almost sort of the business side. I want to get into the fun side, the design stuff, the look and feel stuff. And because I know you guys, you also do a design trends report. So talk about, let's set that one up a little bit and talk about sort of how you guys go about it, what goes into it, and kind of what you pull out of it.
That's something that we do, and it comes out once a year, and it looks ahead 3 years, which I love. Because I'm always looking ahead. I mean, in my past life, I looked ahead for digital, which is, fun, and I love futurism. So, we look ahead about 3 years to the design trends in kitchen and bath. And what we saw in our last one, which we just did, is we see some big shifts in the way the world is living, working, all these different things that are impacting, kitchen and bath, design of the home. And all this is thanks to the pandemic, right? So I think what COVID has done is really up the ante for the home, particularly in high traffic spaces like kitchen and bath. So consumers are looking for easy to clean surfaces, flex spaces to accommodate work, learn from home, more outdoor living spaces like we just talked about, and increased storage solutions. So let's look at the kitchen, for example. If you look at the kitchen, what we're looking at is larger kitchens. Why? Because there probably isn't going to be a return to pre-pandemic levels of dining outside the home for a while. I think most people are now into cooking, being at home. Doesn't mean there isn't going to be some dining, but I feel like it's never going to go back, at least not, I shouldn't say never, but not going to go back. So we're looking at open L-shaped layouts with large islands, bigger kitchens, minimalistic styles, and using mostly natural organic materials. You're also seeing a move, as I said, to larger kitchens. It's almost like we're taking nesting to the extreme, you know,
Yeah.
and like anywhere you go today, even if you went to a Starbucks, which, some people are still doing, there's never enough areas to charge or plug in, and which I would love for it to come at one point where we don't have to have plugs. So adding more to the kitchen and even the bath, adding, stations, charging stations, more plugs, especially in the kitchen where it's where you do everything now. You cook, you work, and you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's kind of funny. You're speaking all the types of language that we're kind of going through right now in our own remodel is like,
Right.
adding more places to sit, more places to do things. And I know one of the things I hear, you want a home that has sort of that lasting design. It's going to, the word slip in my mind, but it has the sort of the design elements that are, kind of forever. They're not going to get outdated very quickly. So I know that's something that we're talking a lot about as well over here. And it's just something that you said it a little bit ago, but you're spending so much more time here, and we see that too on the product side with furniture, couches that you've been sitting in for the past year that are getting lumpy and uncomfortable, down to the kitchen tables, and you're spending more time at your kitchen table, not just eating but working and hanging out and just living more at your kitchen table than you ever have before, and into the kitchen itself and the appliances that you're cooking on more often. And they had upgrade cycles anyway that were in like the 7 to 10 year range because of just standard use. Well, that was just maybe breakfast and dinner. Now it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So
Right.
they're breaking down a little more easily. So just a lot of that turnover, if you will, in those products, and kind of interesting to see it carry over into how, the design elements are impacted.
So in your own remodel, how important was storage to you?
Oh, we're adding cabinets around a corner of our kitchen where there was not cabinets before. So,
Right. So one of the things that we found is that consumers want larger pantries, storage
yeah,
areas, because no one wants to get caught without the extra paper products again, right?
right.
People want to go to the store less contactless exposure. So having more storage for food is essential. And storage to not only that, but hide clutter, small
Yeah,
appliances. So that's all part of that came out as pandemic, and then also coming out as things that are easily cleaned. You talked about, you think about all of these surfaces, materials that are easily cleaned, indoor, outdoor materials. So no intricate details, slab front drawers, and simple or no crown molding. It's amazing how this is driving design
yeah,
and the way we design, right? So, and also consumers are trending towards lighter colored quartz countertops. All finishes and materials. What, did you get a quartz
yeah.
countertop?
We did.
See?
Absolutely.
They're on trend.
Yeah, right.
All these finishes and materials that have to be tough enough to stand up to alcohol and other ammonia-based cleaning products, and anything antimicrobial is big, right? So again, all this, it's so amazing to me how this is driving the design elements of a home. You never thought it would, right?
Now, do you see these being lasting design elements, or you guys project 3 years out? So is this a trend that will last?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we were moving to, even though our role is getting crazier, we were moving towards more simplistic, more efficient, products in our home, right? Because we didn't have a lot of time. And I still think that's going to continue. You think about it, when you think about what people are buying now, they're buying smart products, right? They're buying things that are efficient and easy, and voice activation is big because no one wants to have to touch anything. So I feel like that's going to continue because that's easy. It's simple. The one thing I think we are seeing that's kind of falling off, which has been big forever, is like, think about stainless steel appliances. And maybe it would be interesting to ask, the retailers, but they're losing momentum, still big. But what we're looking at is now we're looking at refrigerators that have integrated door finishes or matching with the cabinets around them. I don't know what you did, but they're expected to be as popular because it's easier to clean, right?
Yeah,
No fingertips. Go ahead.
You think about you think about the different colors and things like that. I know, just as an example, I think typically appliances were sort of something that the space was, they were retrofitted into a space. It was all about design beforehand, and then you were like, oh well, let's get the appliances. Now, thinking about as we're going through it, we have the finishes of we're looking at matte black, so that's just a color,
on trend,
not stainless. But also then you think about the pulls and the handles and things like that will match. It's matte black with brass accents on the door handles and things like that for the appliances and for
It sounds beautiful.
yeah. Well, they're right. Thank you. So we're looking to either we haven't decided yet. Maybe you can help the holes on the cabinets, being either matching the matte black or matching the brass accents of the appliances.
I'm into matte black, and let me tell you something. You should look for antimicrobial. So there's
Yeah.
a couple products that really came to the forefront, during the pandemic and even post-pandemic. Antimicrobial door handles or pulls, which I think is amazing, right? Because
Yeah,
people
that's
want to,
awesome.
touch things and not worry about, passing on germs. And also bidets. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if you were doing your bathroom, but you're talking about a product that is big in Europe. People travel to Europe. They're like, okay, but it's not really big here. It hasn't been big here. And it's kind of like a novelty. So now all of a sudden, what do you have? You have smart toilets that do everything but wipe you, right?
Yep.
The lids close on their own, they flush on their own. And now you also have bidets,
Yeah.
which are becoming almost a standard because why? You know what? I don't want to touch anything.
Right.
And guess what? What was one of the things that we couldn't get during the pandemic? No toilet paper, no toilet paper, right?
Yep,
So, again, driving a lot of this is that now am I saying every house is going to have a bidet? No, but you can see that that it was one of the products that spiked and continues to spike.
Right. And it's kind of interesting, not to say bidets are very tech forward or anything like that, but you talk about the flushing on their own and lids shutting on their own. You can set microwaves on their own, run dishwasher, run appliances, with your voice. Technology has very quickly, creeped its way into kitchen and bath design. So, how has this past year sort of pressed fast forward on that, or were you guys already seeing that?
I mean, we were seeing it, but not, I would say what's happening is that, it's like VR, virtual reality and augmented reality. It used to be at the higher end. It used to be just a small part. But what you see is that, as, Walmart started to train their associates with VR, it started to kind of become almost a mass adoption. Middle America started to understand it and be like, okay, it's the same thing happening now. This is kind of pushed what was happening at the high end and tech savvy or tech forward has now pushed it down to almost mainstream. So almost everybody has some sort of voice activation or smart speaker or smart element in their home, no matter who they are, what their income level is. Voice activated lighting, touchless faucets, smart showers that turn on or can be programmed remotely. I mean, heck, most people turn their car on remotely from 2 or 3 miles away. Why can't I turn my shower on? So there's all this expectation, not just at the high end, but also creeping down. So yes, I think it fast forwarded all of these trends that probably would have taken another 3 to 5 years have now been moved forward. And again, another reason why our supply chain, because the expectation wasn't that these type of products were going to get into mass adoption.
Right. No, absolutely fair. And is there any, I think on the consumer side, when they think about the refrigerator being having a big smart screen on it and touch screen, you kind of relate, everything gets related back to smartphones these days. And knowing that, I can buy a new smartphone, or I'm typically going to buy a new smartphone every year. Is there any concern or what's sort of the feeling, I guess, on the design side that, there is so much technology now? Does it seem like an opportunity or a challenge that, consumers are going to want to possibly, feel like they have to upgrade more often their kitchens and bathrooms with this stuff?
I don't think so. I feel like, most of your smart technologies run through an app. And so you would update maybe through the app. I feel like people are tired of having to update. I don't know about you, but every couple of weeks, I have like 20 apps I have to update. And it's like, all right, enough already. And every time I update my phone, I always lose something, or, my contacts are wrong or something. So I think you're going to see a transition for people not wanting to update, or, sure, there's always going to be these tech savvy or tech forward people that always want to be at the forefront. But I'm like, you know what? I don't need the top phone anymore. What I have is perfectly fine. I think you're seeing this acceptance because people just don't want to deal with it anymore. And it's also kind of a sustainability thing. What happens? Sure, we're going to have some of them being recycled and reused, but it's more like, what? I don't really need that extra feature. So I feel like, I don't think it's going to be the impetus to change kitchens and baths and other areas of the home. I think what you'll see though is layering on new types of technology, right? So instead of using your phone, you might have voice activation in surrounding in your home. Is it integrated into your security system, your entertainment system, so that it's not really just your phone? I could walk in and just start talking to my home. Hopefully it talks back, because nobody else talks back to me. So I'm like, I'm hoping it talks back to me.
It's quiet around these parts.
Yeah, right.
No, so one thing I want to close on, you mentioned it a couple of times throughout, and it kind of sparked my interest because we have an outdoor segment of this membership, and it's typically been focused around grills and some outdoor furniture. But talk to me a little bit about the design trends you're seeing in outdoor kitchens, because we see them, just watching channels like HGTV and the luxurious looking kitchens that get designed for outside. But what is sort of the way things are trending in outdoor kitchens in those living spaces?
Right. Well, let me just say, I love HGTV because everyone thinks they can redo their home in like a day.
Yep.
From the ground up, by the way. Or I shouldn't say, maybe in a couple hours. I think what you're seeing is, you're seeing people, like I said, there's about 60% that are redoing what they have. And, basically what that means is expanding living areas outside, because you're going to have people over. Even now, people don't want people in their homes, right? So you want to expand your living area, some more seating. Maybe you just had a kind of a mediocre grill. Now you want to add an outdoor fridge, an ice maker. You want, a larger grill so that you're doing built-ins outside. And then you want to have a covered area because obviously, think about the Northeast, think about the areas where, the weather impacts. So I want to be outdoor. I want heating components outdoor. I mean, would you ever thought, again, mainstream heating components? I mean, what's the one product you couldn't get anywhere during the winter was, those heaters, right? Those portable heaters you couldn't because everyone was outdoors. So I think what you're seeing is kind of like the trend that had started probably 2-3 years ago, indoor, outdoor, maybe in the South, in California. And you saw a little bit up here in the Northeast, but I think you're seeing the outdoor really come in and the indoor really go out. Kitchens that are replicate of what you have indoors, seating areas, entertainment areas, outdoor TVs, fire pits, which we all know are another big area, and then covered spaces.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And just thinking about the Northeast, I'm in Philly, so not too, it gets all four seasons.
Not that far. You're not that far from us.
Not at all.
New York.
So I know what those four seasons can be like. And it's again, another example of how the pandemic sort of pressed fast forward on a trend that was already sort of happening. People wanting to be outdoors and not gathered in those small spaces indoors, socially distanced, and just get that fresh open air. And it just was like, all right, well, let's take these kitchens outdoor and see what we can do there. So no, that's awesome. And I think speaks to, we're seeing a big push that way too, with outdoor, more people being interested in the idea of extending their living spaces outdoors. We've spent so much time cooped up in our homes. You want to get out, even if it's just out back for a little bit. You want to have a comfortable space to entertain and just exist outside.
And also driving, and also driving home sales. Because people that were in a home that they never were in, didn't spend time in, had a small yard, now want a larger yard, a pool, which, by the way, pools are becoming less of a thing now. They're becoming more of a thing, outdoor space. So a lot of that driving to upgrade homes to move.
Yeah, crazy. So lots to look forward to. And of course, more market reports that we'll dive into in the future as, you guys continue to publish. So Pam, I appreciate the time. This was an awesome conversation, and hopefully catch up again soon, maybe in person before we know it.
I would love that. Thank you so much. You've been amazing, and I've had an incredible time. Thank you.
All right. And again, a huge thank you to Pam for taking time and diving into both of those reports and sharing some really awesome insights. And I guess also for offering me some in-home tips and reassurance that we're on the right path in our own kitchen remodel here at the Stott household. But honestly, just a great conversation, really a great opportunity to catch up with NKBA and hear their insights and things they're following. And hopefully you were able to pick a thing or two out of there and maybe apply it to your own business and what you guys are doing in the kitchen and bath space. So appreciate Pam. And as always, appreciate you taking your time listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we will catch you next time.